Chitose is in the Ramune bottle. I thought it was a pretty neat idea for a show for about 4 episodes. And then I read the manga beyond the show, and it's just kind of a douchebag main character with a harem. It does a lot of weird things that, as much as they are tropes, I think it actually makes the show and main character kind of unlikable. The light novel readers say that they're more complex and in-depth. I'll have to take their word for it because I'm going based off the show. But the first few episodes, you're like, okay, you have Saku Chitose. He's surrounded by a bunch of girls that like him. Yuko Hiragi, Yua Uchida, Yuzuki Nanase, and there's a kid who won't come to class, Kenta Yamazaki. He's shut himself into his room, kind of given up on life, just sits around reading manga and light novels. He's a slob, doesn't take care of himself, super angry at the world, very low self-esteem. And you're like, okay, I've seen this plot before, but seeing it from the other perspective could be pretty interesting. And that gets resolved in about 3 or 4 episodes, and he's just kind of cast aside. The show really is just about Saku Chitose and kind of him having a harem of women to pick from, but not ever really making a decision. Even with the concept of the popular guy helping the loser, besides the fact that it happens very fast, I'm assuming that's kind of the plot of just the first book of the light novels. The dialogue itself is very cringe. It's a strange thing that it does where the characters all kind of talk like they know that they're in a show or that their whole life is a show. A lot of anime is guilty of this to some degree, but this show really ramps it up. And I think it's much more noticeable because the show seems to think that it's deep and interesting. And it's a shame because it really speeds through what could have been a pretty interesting part of the story. And I don't think that has to be the entire story, but the way that it develops certainly could be relevant to the rest of the story. And instead, it just sort of seems like Kenta is an excuse to show how cool Saku is and then move on. Like, yeah, they're still friends, quote unquote, after this first arc, but he's just kind of around in the background. And this arc goes really fast. Like in the first episode, he says, I'm never leaving my bedroom, go away. By the second episode, he's come to school. By the third episode, he's lost weight and he's kind of fitting in and he's preparing to confront his bullies that traumatized him. They managed to fit in a little meltdown that he has in here because of his low self-esteem and him lashing out at Saku, which he even acknowledges is unfair. And even then, Saku comes and helps him out because he's a great guy. He kind of tacitly threatens the other losers that are bullying the bigger loser in Kenta. It's all fine. It just happens very, very quickly. And I think it's kind of used as more of almost bait to what the show is going to be than what it actually is. Because what it actually is literally just him bragging about how attractive he is and how cool he is and talking to the attractive girls in his class and them all telling him how cool he is and how much they like him. And then him being like, oh, I don't know who to pick. And like I said, I'm sure there'll come a point in the season or series or whatever where we get a backstory into his trauma and why he is the way that he is. But the way the show jumps into you're with the cool guy and that's the story, I think kind of makes it lose a pretty good amount of appeal. And even after that arc ends, Kenta still refers to him as his king and stuff, which is all, I think, pretty cringe and weird. And then him and Yuzuki get into a fake relationship because she's being stalked and doesn't know by who. And I'm assuming Japan is similar to America in that stalking is a very hard crime to deal with because it's not Minority Report where the cops can deal with people before they do stuff. So you kind of just have to wait. And based on the manga, at least, it seems like that plot line might go all the way to the end of the season, or maybe they'll squeeze in one more. So it's just kind of a weird situation where now you've got a guy with a bunch of girls that like him who know he's in a fake relationship while he's in a fake relationship with a girl that actually likes him that he might actually like. I don't even know. And I think there's plenty of rom-coms and obviously isekai and other genres that do self-inserts pretty well and the whole harem thing, even though it's generally not my preference. But this one is very weird and that you're just kind of thrown in to this kid who, as far as we can tell, is just the beneficiary of good genetics and has a harem and likes to brag about it. It's all kind of off-putting to me. Of course, this month-long break in the anime is not going to help its ratings, I'm sure, but the read that I get from it is kind of either a self-insert for someone who is jealous of the popular kid, or high school was their favorite part of their life and they were the popular kid and now they've reimagined it through a light novel. And as far as the pacing of the story goes, it is weird that you really rush through the kind of subversive, interesting topic of the loser becoming more normal from the popular kid's perspective to get to just kind of self-indulgent harem dealing with stalkers maybe plotline. Bottom tier character Tomazaki kind of ran into this same problem in season 2. which I want to say was book 5 or 6 in the light novels, where it dragged this resistance to bully arc for like 2/3 of the season. And it sort of feels like what's happening with this show too. I don't know if the first part was the peak. I don't know if it gets better after this next arc, but as far as the anime goes and the manga up to chapter like 50, this is the story. And I just don't find anything about it super compelling. I think it's pretty popular, so maybe I'm in the minority here. This is how the show comes across to me, at least. I just wanted to put it out there because it's a very strange show because it tries to divert from the tropes, but then kind of slides right back into them without the appeal of some of those tropes. Like, no one really likes the naive main character. It's very annoying, but then that at least justifies why he's not picking a girl. When you have him know that all the girls like him, he's not picking. He's just kind of a dick. And that effect sort of bleeds over through the whole thing. Like, we don't even get his journey to being popular. It's just God-given as far as we know, which again kind of strips out the appeal of both the story and the conflicts being overcome and the challenges and that whole narrative, as well as if you're into the whole self-insert thing, you kind of need to start out average or lower. When you start out at the plateau or the peak, and that's just who you are, it does make it a little bit harder to care. So I'm gonna leave it there for this one. I don't want to keep going. I don't want to shit on the show a ton. It's fine. It's just not working for me. If you've seen it, let me know what you think. Try to respond in the comments that aren't just insults. Like and subscribe and all that shit. Thanks. See ya.